Thank you for making the time for joining us today. And this session is going to be focused on how you can get the most benefit out of using Attio's call insight feature through effective prompting of the AI tool there. My name is Ruth, and I am one of the solution engineers here at Attio. I think I've met a few of you who are on the line already. And I'm joined today by my colleague Marissa, who will be in the chat. So feel free to ask questions in there, and she'll be responding throughout the session. In terms of our agenda today, we're going to start off with just a wee reminder of best practices when it comes to prompt engineering. Then we're going to go into a brief product demo showing where you can go in Attio to do your to create your insight templates. Then we're going to work through a bunch of examples for different use cases and different types of audiences and what kind of prompts they might want to consider for different business types. And finally, we'll have some time on the end for a Q&A. Although the session has an hour set aside for it today, I think this is going to be more like a half-hour session. We can run longer if we have questions, but we should get you a bit of time back at the end. So we're going to start off talking through some prompt engineering 101. And if you guys are wanting a deep dive on this, we recently ran a workshop that does prompt engineering in quite a bit of detail. So this is just going to be a recap of some of the key concepts that you need to bear in mind when you're creating prompts for AI. The first thing is the AI isn't as smart as people tend to think it is. We are not at general intelligence yet. It is just a large language model, and it doesn't have a lot of context out with what you tell it. So you should treat your AI like an intern. Give it as much context as possible and be very specific in your ask to it if you want to get the best results from using it. The next thing is to think about how you want to structure your prompt. You want to be clear about what the goal or the mission is, what insights you're trying to derive, and maybe even give it examples and formatting requirements to make sure you get consistent results that are in line with what you are trying to achieve. Even with those things in mind, even if you do try and be very specific and to the point and give great structure, it may require several iterations to get the results that you are wanting on a consistent basis. So don't be afraid to continuously iterate and refine your prompt. It is never like a one and done exercise. And as we'll see soon, we have got some templates that can be a great starting point in Attio, but I would always be encouraging everyone to refine these against your own specific needs and business cases. And finally, you want to control the output. If you want the team or whoever's using the call recording insights to feel confident in what the data that they're seeing, you should be really specific to the prompt or to the AI about how you want to structure the output on the other side. How long should it be? What kind of information should it contain? Anything that makes it consistent so that you can rely on the results that you are getting is going to give you the best results possible. So as I say, this is just a very high level. These are the top 4 things I try and keep in mind when designing AI prompts. But if you want more in-depth workshop on prompt engineering, we have one in our Attio library that was run by our colleague Andrew, and it is great. So if you want a deep dive, I would suggest going there. But these are the 4 principles that we're going to keep in mind. Apologies for the cat, as we work through the rest of our workshop today. So now let's look at how do we actually create an insight template in Attio. Insight templates are part of our call recording functionality, and so they exist here in the calls section of Attio under Insight Templates. There isn't a limit to the number of templates you can create in Attio, and so generally each of the different teams or functions that are working in your Attio environment may want one or more templates to meet the different types of calls that they do. For example, I'm a solution engineer here at Attio, and I work in both a pre-sales functionality and a post-sales onboarding functionality. And I have 2 different insight templates that I use for those 2 different types of calls, because the kind of information I want to derive from a call that I'm having with a customer in a pre-sales function is quite different from the kind of information I want to capture when I'm having an onboarding call with a customer and doing more of a project management piece. So you can create lots of different templates. We have examples here like an onboarding one, a sales, a customer success, a health score, different templates for different teams that work in your system. If you want to create a template, you go up to the top and click New Template. And you can either do this completely from scratch yourself, or you can start with a template from Attio. And we've got most of the key use cases that businesses have here in our templates. I would say that these templates are very high level and are only really a starting point for the insights you want to derive. You may find that they are great for getting you going, but you will want to refine the prompts that are in these templates to be more specific to your business needs, and maybe to include things like the formatting that you want for your outputs. For now, I'm going to just start from scratch and we'll look at putting a prompt in here. Now, when people approach prompts, they usually just think of what kind of information they're trying to get. So let's say I'm trying to get product feedback. I might want to create a section called product feedback. And initial prompts can be as simple as what product feedback came up during this call. This would be not a great prompt, but it will function. So over here on the right, we can see that we are previewing this against a specific call recording in our Attio instance. I would always say when you're building these, go to a call recording that you are familiar with so that you know what content occurred during that meeting, so you can see if the outputs are what you expect. But you can then generate the preview. And what we'll see here as it analyzes is it's going to pull out product feedback that occurred during the call, but it's not going to necessarily be in any particular format or we're not given it any detail about exactly what we're trying to understand about this product feedback. So this can be a useful starting point, and it's definitely getting more out from the call than just having to manually go through a transcript. But if we can engineer our prompt and have those best practices that we just already discussed in mind, we can get a lot more useful output from this insight. So I'm going to add a section below. I'm going to call this also product feedback, but this time, product feedback detailed. And I'm going to paste a prompt in here that I've already pre-built. Now, in this prompt, I am giving the AI a mission. I'm telling it what its function is. You are a product manager reviewing the transcript of a customer call, and your goal is to extract feedback related to product features, whether direct or implied. So we're giving it a really clear mission. That's the treat it like an intern part of our prompt engineering. And then I'm telling it what kind of information I want it to gather for each piece of feedback. So what was the feature name that they were mentioning? What was their sentiment? Is there a quote or a paraphrase comment that I can use from this? What is the feedback type? Is it a usability concern? Is it missing functionality? Is it general dissatisfaction? And what is our suggested follow-up action that we should take based on this feedback? And then I've given it a format that I want the output structured in: feature, sentiment, comment, feedback type, and suggested follow-up. If I now rerun this insight template against our same call, this is going to now use both of these prompts and give us the results. And we should see the difference that we get from a very simple prompt versus a much more detailed and structured prompt below. So we'll just give it a few seconds to run here. And hopefully we can see some details. These things always feel like they take much longer when you are trying to demonstrate them live. Here we go. So we have that initial product feedback from our basic prompt at the top, and then we have this product feedback detailed underneath. And so we can see that we get a lot more information in a format that's maybe more usable if I'm going to be logging these feature requests, for instance. I can take the exact quotes that explain what functionality they are looking for. I can understand whether it's usability or missing functionality. And so by engineering my prompt with a little bit more thought, I've created an output that can be a lot more useful for what I want to do next with this data. So when we're engineering the prompt, we're not just thinking about what information do I want, but what format is that going to be useful for me to have it in so that I can take the next job or the next action based off of this feedback. So that is how we can create the insight templates here in Attio. I'm going to go back to the deck here, and we're going to run through a few examples of prompts that I've seen customers using with a lot of success and different sort of structures you might want to think about in different industries. So a very common prompt that people might want is to create a follow-up email. So based on the call, I want to save myself a lot of time in terms of replying to the customer after the call, and I want a follow-up email. Again, I'm giving it a mission. And in my example here, I'm saying you are a sales engineer. This is because for my follow-up email, I am a sales engineer. And so I wanted to have that perspective in mind when crafting the response. You would want a different prompt if you were writing a customer success email or if you're writing a sales email. And so again, this is where having those different insight templates for different functionalities within your company will become beneficial. So I'm asking it for this email and I'm telling it what outcome I'm trying to drive. I want to reinforce key points and build trust with the client. And then I'm giving it a structure that I want it to follow, saying thanks for your time, providing a short summary. And I'm also telling it to highlight the most important topics from the call, no more than 4 or 5, and then a closing sentence that invites further questions or continued engagement. Again, I'm being very specific about what I'm looking for, so I don't end up with a really long essay that covers every single detail of the call, and I don't end up with something that's too short and not very beneficial for that sending of the follow-up email. I want to just copy and paste this across to my email. And with that copy and paste in mind, I have added some important constraints. I'm asking it not to format this email itself. This is because if the call intelligence formats, it will use stars to, for example, make bold formatting, and it will add numbers, but they're not going to be in the same format as you get in an email editor. So I've included in a specific request for it not to format my email so that I can directly copy and paste this across into my email editor. I'm also telling it to use natural human language, and I'm telling it that if links or videos are referenced, to include them naturally in the email text. This is to save me as much time as possible so that I can just input my links directly into the copied and pasted email, and then be ready to send. So I'm trying to reduce the amount of manual input I need altogether. And finally, I've given it an example to help it understand the tone of voice and the style of the output. Now, this is taking an email, the kind of email that I might send an Attio customer after a call that I've had. Depending on what kind of business you are, your style and your tone of voice may be very different. And you may have different styles and tones of voices that different people within your organization like to adopt. Because everyone can create their own insight templates in Attio, that allows users to input their own emails for the call intelligence to use to draft the response, creating a very personal and very realistic feeling communication. Or if, on the other hand, you want to tightly control the tone of voice that your company has, you can put in a specific formatting here, which ensures all follow-up communications employs the correct tone of voice, regardless of which employee that follow-up communication comes from. So you can either really lean on the personal, and everyone has their own insight template with their own email style included, or go for the much more structured and sort of top-down approach of having a company voice and enforcing its use through the prompt. So this is something that I see in most call insight templates. If you're going to have a follow-on action of emailing, is a version of this kind of prompt. The next use case is something that can be really helpful in terms of getting coaching advice for the people who are taking part in the call. So I have this in every one of my templates because I find it really helpful to review what I've done well and where I could have maybe improved in every call that I take. Again, I'm giving it a mission. I'm telling it it's a professional career coach analyzing a recorded business call and giving it a task of giving me that constructive feedback for every Attio participant on the call. Again, this is with the idea of it being an Attio call. You would exchange this for your business. Something that the call intelligence doesn't know offhand is who in the call is an internal participant versus an external participant. So I'm giving it the specific information that anyone with an @attio.com email address is an internal participant, and these are the people who I want the feedback for. I don't need coaching for my customers. So you have to remember that the insight template doesn't know any more than what you tell it. So be very specific and clear in that guidance. And then giving it a structure, I want positive feedback, I want constructive feedback, and I want specific examples to support the feedback you're giving and clear practical suggestions for improvement where improvement has been identified. And again, I've given it a structure for the response to ensure that I get a consistent output and that is familiar to me at a glance and I can easily understand what it's telling me. So this is something that, as I say, I have in every one of my templates. I think it's a really beneficial thing, even if you don't read it every time, but all of us always have things to learn. And so this is a great thing to include in your team's templates to help them get the most out of the call recordings. Moving into more of an industry-specific prompt that I think can be very helpful. This is targeted towards VCs or investment companies, where actually tracking other companies that are mentioned during a call can be something that can be quite challenging and very important for people to track. So I'm again giving it a mission of being a VC associate reviewing a call transcript, and they have to identify all companies and individuals mentioned, excluding those that are excluding those associated with the call participants. So again, this is going for the client side, so not the @attio.com people. Please focus your analysis on what the external customer is saying. I'm telling it what it needs to extract, so the company or person's name, a relationship to the client, and I'm giving it a specific set of relationships to choose from, as these are the kinds of things that are going to be the most useful to me. So are they competition, co-investor, a portfolio company, an incubator? Is this a supported introduction that they're making between me and another person? Any sort of giving it a specific list of options to choose from, again, can make the output a lot more useful for you and make it much more reliable and consistent, regardless of which call it is being run against. And then again, I'm asking for a brief context or quote from the transcript to support this relationship. This can also help ensure there's no hallucination or anything funny going on to get that detailed understanding of where is this coming from. And I'm giving it a format for the output, again, just to make sure that it's consistent and I can action it really easily. So I've given an example of, for example, Redpoint Ventures, co-investor, and then the quote, funding round raised with Redpoint Ventures last year. So through doing this, I can then easily take that information in a digestible format and either input it elsewhere in the CRM, use it to sort of identify who I should reach out to next, or take action, whatever action it is that I need to take from this. Coming into more of a sales perspective and thinking of a specific qualification or scoring methodology that maybe different teams are using. I'm using MEDDIC here in my example, and Attio actually comes with a template pre-built in the call insights for MEDDIC or BANTS and other common qualification tools. But I will say that the templates are very broad and you may want to be more specific and targeted in your prompt to get the best possible results. So if it was me, this is the kind of prompt that I would be using. Again, telling it who it is and what it's doing. Its goal is to extract key qualification details based on the MEDDIC framework and then assign a qualification score. I'm not assuming it knows what I mean by MEDDIC framework. So I am giving it my specific definition for each of the aspects of MEDDIC. So metrics, economic buyer decision criteria, etc. Again, it's an intern. I can't assume knowledge. So be as specific as possible in your prompt here to get the best results. I then have the instructions. So for each MEDDIC category, extract the information and based on the completeness and clarity, assign a qualification score between 1 and 5. And then I've given it my specific understanding of what I want for a 1 versus a 3 versus a 5. Again, assume nothing, be as specific as you can. So this is a generic one. If this was for my business, I would probably include specific metrics I want it to listen for, or identify pains that I think align with our ideal customer profile, so that I can know when it's getting that information, it's not just that it's there, but it's actually qualified against what I think a good identified pain would be for my business. And then again, giving it a formatted requirement. This is super important. You don't want it to just go on for pages and pages. You want it to be useful and reliable and consistent. So we tell it exactly what we want. And I've actually told it to keep each point to 1 or 2 sentences in length, because when I was testing this, I was sometimes finding that I was getting pages and pages of insights out of this. And actually, I want it to be more targeted than that. And my final example that I have for you just now is a customer health, customer scoring example. So again, giving it a mission of being a customer success manager, and this time it's evaluating the overall health of the account based on what's discussed. I've given it specific factors that it should be measuring against, even if only some of them are discussed. So what is their product usage, the value realization, the sentiment, the engagement? Have they mentioned any signs of risk? Are they signaling expansion? Depending on your business, these may look or sound different. And so you'd want to be specific to the tool about what exactly it's looking for. Again, I'm asking it to give it a score for each one of these based on what it's hearing in the call. So from high risk to very healthy, and then a format for its output. So what, for each thing, giving me a quote if something came up that was relevant to that area, a health score at the end, and then a justification for why it's scored the customer in such a way. So I can understand the thinking that the AI took, or the path to get to its conclusion, rather than just a number, which is a bit of a black box and I might not know where it's come from. So hopefully these examples are starting to trigger some ideas in your head about where you could get the most benefit from our call intelligence, and the kind of level of depth that a great prompt would have for Attio's call intelligence. I've just got 3 top tips to kind of end this section on, and then we can do a bit of Q&A. And this is things that I've already said several times. You want to make this really specific. So you can create templates for each team, but in general, it's good to allow users to create their own versions of these templates to further refine the scope. I know here at Attio, almost everybody has their own call intelligence templates that they use personally to make sure that the information they're getting is really targeted to their specific job function and how they like to ingest information. So you can create your templates with best practices, but allow people to copy them and iterate and improve and refine it for their specific role. You should also test your template against different calls. I'm going to come back out of my slide here and go into back into the insight template here. So we have these 2 examples of prompts that I put in, and I tested it against a single call. And while this is helpful, I maybe want to actually understand, do I get similar results if I point it in another direction on a different call I had? Or does it fail? Was there something particularly good in that call that is missing from the other calls that mean my insights are not going to be as beneficial, when used repeatedly? So you can test against as many calls as you want for each of your insight templates. As I mentioned, I really recommend doing this against calls that you've actually listened to or attended yourself, so that you can really judge, is this accurate and is this fair based on my personal experience of being in that call. So test against multiple calls and then make changes. You can also change things if you're finding, for example, this is, maybe not so easy to read. I could adjust the formatting, refresh it, just keep refining it till you're happy with the output that you're getting. And the final tip I have at this stage is to use other AI tools to help you. One of the best things you can do to get a really great insight prompt is take your initial prompt and put it into another AI tool, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever your tool of preference is, and ask it to refine it for you. It knows what makes a great prompt because it is AI itself. And so its output can be really beneficial in pointing you in a better direction or highlighting anything that you might have missed or was unclear about your own writing. So I really lean very heavily on using ChatGPT to really beef out my prompts and make them as productive as I can possibly make them. And that is everything that we had to cover off in the sort of presentation today. I'm going to just have a quick look into the chat and see if there's anything coming up that people would like to follow up on, or if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, please feel free to do so at this point. I saw that Alessandro asked about the specific examples. I'm sure that we can sort something out to make these available. Maybe I'll make a supporting resource that I'll link in the community, and I'll give the specific wording of the examples that I had in this demonstration so that you can use them as a starting point, copy and paste them across, and make any edits that you need. Do we have any other questions at all today? I'll give everyone another minute, but if there are no questions, I can take it as I've answered everything possible that anyone needed to know about the Call Insights templates. Any limit on call length to process? No, and just as long as the call recorder was in the meeting, it will be using that to provide the responses on the Insight template, and we don't currently have any limits for the length of call recording. I can see that we do still have some people typing, so I'll keep it open for now. This is where it'd be great if I could let people go off mute, but I don't think I can in this particular format. Let's see. Okay. Uh, Hey Maxime, nice to see you in the meeting. We are almost ready for alpha testing for offering our call recorder in additional languages. It's across the majority of European languages is what we're targeting at first. If you do have any specific ones that people are looking for, I recommend chatting into our support team who'll be able to advise on that. But yes, we are very, very close to alpha testing, and then that should mean that we're not too far away from being able to get that out to all of our end users. Maxime, specifically, I have you in the list already to be for our product team to outreach to when they're ready for alpha testers. Oh, but people can, just as a reminder, you can set your transcript natively for, if you use Zoom or if you use Teams, you can set the transcript to be in another language, and that will make the transcript in Attio in another language already, even before we have native multilingual support. Unfortunately for Google Meet, there isn't an option for having the transcript translated from the source, so Google Meet customers will have to wait until we are ready to release. I don't see anyone still typing, so I'm going to take that as we're all sorted for today. Thank you again for making the time and joining us. And if there is anything that comes up afterwards, percolating it in your brain, please feel free to post in the community and we'll come back to you there. Have a great day.